up. We feel their pain. The truth is out. The case is closed. But our search for justice never slows.
Hey everyone, happy Monday. I hope everyone had a good day or is having a good day, depending on where you are at. It was 50 degrees here today. It was a little windy, but I did get outside for a couple of hours, so that was really nice. That brisk air definitely helps invigorate oneself. So that's about all I did today. Didn't really do much, but I need to start getting things done because I go back to work on Thursday. So time is a ticking. Oh, it's raining again, Pookie. Yeah, and I saw it on one of the news stations out west of me. They were saying a winter storm warning from Wednesday to Sunday. I'm like, oh no, I hope that's not going to happen here. But it's supposed to get back down to the 30s on Wednesday. So, but all the snow is gone. So that's a bonus because I can actually, get out and walk and do other stuff. So thanks everybody for being here. I know we may not have a lot here tonight because apparently there's a lot of, dramatic things happening on these YouTube streets, but this is important, and this is what people should be talking about because this man lost his life by the hands of 13 correctional officers and a nurse. There have been some rallies. I did see there was a protest/rally held in Brooklyn over the weekend, and there was also one in Albany yesterday. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Hey, Tiny Trees, how are you? So we have some things happening. I have a couple of responses. One is from Al Sharpton. Another is from New York Senator Julia Salazar, who is, I believe she's the youngest senator to be elected in New York, which is pretty cool. And then we're going to look into the FBI and Department of Justice are now looking into this incident, and Governor Hochul visited Marcy Correctional institution today, and she states that there will be several changes coming down the pike. Whether that is to be seen, we'll see, because this isn't the first time this has happened, and it probably won't be the last, unfortunately. Hey, Shaylee, thanks for being here. So we have that, and then if time allows, because I do have quite a bit in this, there's just so many things I want to talk about, not only in relation to Mr. Brooks, but these other lawsuits that are happening. We had talked about on my last live, and I did make a note. I want to try to get the trial transcript for, I don't remember the man's name now. It completely escapes me, but the jury had found no wrongdoing. I want to get the transcripts for that court trial because I'd like to know what was said. There is a lawsuit that is still pending from 2022, and that is from an inmate at Marcy, and that was filed in 2022. And there's some things I'll talk about if we get to that. If we don't get to that today, which we may not, I am planning on doing a live where we talk about the lawsuits and, the other incidents that some of these COs have been involved in. And the fact that some of those who were involved in Mr. Brooks' death were listed on a lawsuit filed in 2022, but we're still working. That just, I mean, I guess, you know, they haven't been proven of any wrongdoing, but I would think if you're in active litigation with someone in your correctional facility, you shouldn't be working there. But that's just my perspective. All right, so we're going to get started. I did make sure, I think there's one video that does show, the first video we're going to watch, excuse me, they did blur out everything that was happening, which kudos to them. No one needs to see Mr. Brooks, you know, actively dying at the hands of these a-holes. There is one clip that I have that will show just a little bit, so I'll give my disclaimer before that, but I really watched these to make sure that they weren't graphic. Some of the major news outlets are showing like just I can't even say what they show because it's that repulsive and that terrifying. Oh, hey, Oki, how's it going? Thanks for being here. All right, so let me add this here. All right. So we are going to get started.
Breaking news on the expanding investigation into the death of a prison inmate from Rochester, whom authorities say was brutally beaten by corrections officers. Video released today.
And this is where this this headline or this title of this video, outrage grows over New York State inmates brutal beating before death. It's almost saying that he died. His death wasn't related. Like he was brutally beaten, but then he died. So they're kind of like it should say over New York State inmates brutal death. That's what happened. But I digress. Hey, Twist, thanks for being here.
Hey.
These videos are shocking and disturbing, and I advise all to take appropriate care before choosing to watch them.
Outrage boiling over the death of Rochester native Robert Brooks, whom authorities say fell victim to a senseless and savage attack at the hands of corrections officers behind prison walls.
As Attorney General, you have my word that we will use every possible tool available to us to investigate this death thoroughly and swiftly.
Tonight, a comprehensive look at the case and the reaction running high. And we want to warn you, the video released today is violent. And while the exact cause of Robert Brooks' death has yet...
I'm glad he used the word violent. That's actually a good word to describe it. It was very violent. Very violent.
To be revealed, his family wants justice. Good afternoon, I'm Matt Malloy. Karen is off. The New York State Attorney General today releasing 8 body camera videos from inside the Marcy Correctional facility. The videos giving rise to more and more questions about exactly what happened in that prison before Robert Brooks died. 13 Web's Christian Garzone with reaction from Brooks's family attorney and the comments by Attorney General Letitia James.
And I don't think there's any question as to what happened before Mr. Brooks died. Those correctional officers beat him to death. They killed him. And I understand you are innocent until proven guilty. But when there's video evidence of what you did, you can't deny it. You can't deny it.
James, Christian, good evening.
Cash.
Good evening.
Yeah,
this investigation is still ongoing. We don't know why Brooks was transferred from the Mohawk facility to the Marcy facility. A lawyer said right now the Brooks family only wants answers. A warning, the video you're about to see is graphic.
And they do blur it out. So just as I mean, I would still look away if it's upsetting. I know for me, I can't even look at it even with the blur. But thank you to ABC 13 for blurring what was happening.
State Attorney General Letitia James releasing body-worn camera videos from the December 9th incident involving Robert Brooks of Rochester, who died on December 10th after an encounter with New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision officers at Marcy Correctional Facility in Marcy, Oneida County. On December 9th, Mr. Brooks was transferred from Mohawk Correctional Facility to Marcy.
And that's one thing I want to mention too. I had done a short on YouTube and TikTok. TikTok is exploded. It's got over 100,000 views, which is obscene. I've never had a video had that many views on TikTok. But some of the comments by the people, I mean, I've been pretty snarky with some of them because the comments are, well, he almost killed his girlfriend. So what do you expect? Well, I expect that he's safe in prison because he pled guilty to what he did and he's serving his time. There's other people in my comments, which I had to delete, saying that he had been at Marcy for months before this happened. No, these people are so ignorant. And there was this one woman kept commenting on everyone else's comments, just like, this is what he did. This is what he did. And so I responded, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out of my comments. Like, nobody has time for that. If you don't agree with, justice for this man, then find another person to watch or comment somewhere else. Like, why are you spending all of your time trying to get across what his crime was? I mean, I'm open. Like, people would say, well, what was he in prison for? Not that it matters. But, and then people are bringing in politics. Like, no, it is I'm sure this is going to turn political, which is very sad, but the ignorance, I just can't deal with it. So thankfully there is a block button on TikTok I finally found, and, deleting comments, which is always good too. Hey kids, how are you? Did I miss somebody? Oh no, Cash is talking about a dragon. Okay. Hey, Matt. Matt, I was just talking about you the other day because you were gifted a membership, and I was like, I haven't seen Matt around in a while. So it's good to see you. It's been a hot minute. And I agree. It doesn't matter what he did. It wasn't their job to punish him. Exactly. Hey, Steph B. Thanks for listening. Drive safely.
Correctional Facility, both in Oneida County. Mr. Brooks, who was handcuffed with his hands behind his back, was then taken to a medical examination room where the events captured in this video took place. His face originally appears unscathed in the body-worn camera video, later bloodied and swollen. The videos released Friday show corrections officers either taking turns punching and kicking Brooks or just standing idly by, watching. He was later taken to a nearby hospital.
And even though they were just even the ones just standing there watching, they are an accessory to murder, in my opinion. They stood by and watched. And maybe some of them were scared because, of retaliation or whatever, but now you're culpable.
Where he died the next day on December 10th.
These videos are shocking and disturbing, and I advise all to take appropriate care before choosing to watch them.
The lawyer for the Brooks family, Elizabeth Mazur, saying watching these videos with the family was incredibly painful.
I just can't even imagine what it was like for them to see their brother, their son, their father's final breaths on this earth.
Mazur is saying Brooks was completely defenseless. The action and inaction of some of the officers was troubling.
This is like not a rage fuel event. It seems just like everyday business, which just is very upsetting.
Mazur says she and the family are not sure the details surrounding this beating.
This is so incomprehensible. How could this happen?
Mazur says the family right now is only asking for answers.
It's hard to even know what needs to happen until we get to the bottom of how it could be that this occurred.
The State Department of Corrections Commissioner Daniel Marticello saying the video left him repulsed and nauseated, and this behavior cannot be normalized, calling it clearly a, quote, killing. He said action is being taken.
And I hope that people hold him accountable, because a lot of, these men are part of a union, and the union, regardless of, what you do, it's their job to defend you. But the fact that there haven't been charges yet, like, come on, district attorney general, what's going on here?
And including the termination process for those involved, resulting in 13 staff now suspended without pay and 1 employee resigning. The union that represents
the officer that resigned, I don't remember his first name, but his last name is Farina. And Mr. Farina is also named in the lawsuit that was filed by William Alvarez, who is an inmate at Marcy. So it seems that a lot of those COs involved in Mr. Brooks' death, it's not the first time they've done this type of thing.
The correctional officers previously said, in part, in statement, what happened to Mr. Brooks is the opposite of what they stand for. The incident only endangers their entire membership and undermines the integrity of their profession, adding, we cannot condone this behavior. In a release to the media, the Attorney General said in part, the release of this footage is not an expression of any guilt or innocence. No one has been charged. The investigation is ongoing. Matt, right back to you.
Christian, thank you. And more reaction following today's video release. Governor Kathy Hochul says she is outraged and horrified after seeing the footage. The governor previously directed the corrections commissioner to begin the termination process for 14 people involved in this case. The governor says she offers her deepest condolences to the Brooks family. Again, Robert Brooks was from Rochester. Mayor Malik Evans says the beating captured in the video was beyond horrific, and those responsible must be held accountable. Be sure to stay with 13 Wham for any breaking developments in this case. Our coverage continues around the clock on 13wham.com.
13 Wham. Pretty cool name. All right. So I'm going to we'll go to some of the statements. So I have a statement from Al Sharpton, and then also New York Senator Julio Salazar, and then we'll get into a couple of videos about the rallies that are happening, and then we'll talk more so about the FBI and DOJ investigating now, and what possibly they can do with federal charges. So we'll see. And I did look, his name is Anthony Farina. Anthony Farina. He is the only one to resign. Because for those of you who didn't see my live from the other day when I talked about this, investigators had, when they were being questioned, they were given the option of resigning or starting paperwork for retirement if they answered questions. Well, only one of them resigned. So is it possible that Mr. Farina answered questions? Maybe. Or maybe he just resigned because he didn't think he would be involved anymore. I don't know. I don't know Mr. Farina, but I do know that he's named in another lawsuit. So Mr. Farina has a lot of issues these days. Yes, 14. 13 correctional officers and 1 nurse. Okay, so this Reverend Al Sharpton responds to horrific video of upstate New York correction officers killing Robert L. Brooks. Reverend Al Sharpton, founder and president of the National Action Network, issued the following statement in wake of footage released this afternoon that shows correction officers fatally beating inmate Robert Brooks at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Utica, New York. It's actually in Marcy, New York, which I guess, they just use the biggest city next to it. Brooks, 43, had been serving a 12-year sentence since 2017 at the facility when he was beaten by several officers on December 9th. He died a day later of what the local medical examiner called, quote, asphyxia due to compression of the neck, end quote. Governor Hochul subsequently ordered the firing of 14 officers at the facility, and Brooks's death is now being investigated by 4 agencies, including the New York Attorney General's office, which released the footage on Friday. The footage of Robert Brooks's death is as horrifying as what we saw when George Floyd, Tyree Nichols, and countless other Black men and women have been killed by law enforcement. These officers clearly thought they were within their right to hit Brooks in the stomach with the heel of a boot, level punches at his face or torso, and throw him around like a rag doll, all with his hands behind his back. They were wrong. It is disturbing that some of them had the sense to smile and smirk while a human being was forced against a wall by 3 officers just a few feet away. Their actions in this tape not only justify their firing, but should merit appropriate criminal charges. I and the National Action Network want to thank New York State's leaders for their swift action to address this heinous murder. Well, I wouldn't call 3 weeks swift action, but at least something is happening. Governor Hochul's decision to rightfully fire the 14 officials involved has been followed up with transparency by Attorney General James. This is a signal to the rest of the nation that leaders have a sworn duty to respond to unspeakable acts such as these for the sake of those murdered and their families. My hope is that the criminal justice system will see this case through and ensure justice for Robert Brooks and his loved ones. And hey, for sakes alive, I am not a fan of Mr. Sharpton, but I will say that his statement expresses, everything that I would have said myself. And the main thing too, I'm glad he mentioned the fact that some of them, because we did see, I didn't show you the videos. But if anyone hasn't seen the videos and you choose to watch them, the link is in the description of this live. I am choosing not to show them because they're horrific. But in one of them, you can see 2 officers standing in the outside the door frame, watching, smirking, laughing, smiling, like it was entertainment for them. It was freaking gross. Freaking gross. Yeah, Team Brett. Hey, Cocoa Puff. Thanks for being here. All right, so the next statement I have is from Senator Julia Salazar, New York Senator, I should say. Actually, I'm going to leave it this way. Oh, give me 1 second. That might be why it's not showing it. Ugh, of course. Okay, here we go. Okay, and Senator Salazar was at the rally / protest in Albany yesterday. Statement by Senator Julia Salazar in response to video recordings of the assault against Robert Brooks. Okay, they need to say of the killing of Robert Brooks. They killed him. The video recordings that were made public today by the Office of the Attorney General depict unfathomable and lethal violence by DOCCS correction officers and staff against Robert Brooks, a man who was incarcerated in DOCCS custody at Marcy Correctional Facility on December 9th. It should not even be possible for this to occur inside a New York State prison. The fact that this violence at the hands of state employees is happening in any New York State prison is a profound policy failure that demands immediate action. There are several critical actions that must be taken to address the heinous and deadly violence that was inflicted upon Robert Brooks by DOCCS correction officers and staff. Some actions have already been taken by Commissioner Marticello, Governor Hochul, the Office of Attorney General Letitia James, and the New York State Police, including the suspension without pay of staff who were involved, the resignation of some officers involved, and ongoing independent investigations which have revealed the details we now have. We demand and fully expect all officers involved to be criminally charged for their respective roles in enabling and committing barbaric violence against Robert Brooks, ultimately killing him. And I'm really glad that she said that all of the officers involved for their respective roles in enabling and committing. So not just committing it, but those who just stood around watching and did nothing. And it was barbaric. That is a very good description as well. We must also act swiftly to pass legislation to prevent this from ever happening to another human being and to fully hold accountable anyone who has contributed to horrific violence in New York's prisons and jails. The only issue I have with this last statement is that Mr. Brooks isn't the first person to die by the hands of correctional officers in prison. And I truly hope that, Mr. Brooks' death wasn't in vain and that something does change. But right now, we're just getting a lot of words. A lot of words, not a lot of action. So hopefully there will be change, but I won't hold my breath. That's actually good advice, Cash. Stop killing each other and be nice. I agree. For Sakes Alive says, I've never seen anything so vividly horrible in real life like that. I've seen deceased people, but not like that. It was a shock for sure. That name, Seth Curry? I don't even know who that is. I know, what's that other Curry that plays basketball? I should know his name. My nephew's loves him. Let's see. Marcy Correctional Facility cannot remain open. The brutal killing of Robert Brooks would be more than enough reason to demand the closure of Marcy. However, there have been additional previous reports of unconscionable violence against incarcerated individuals by staff at Marcy and at other DOCCS facilities. My office has received these reports, and I have urged those with power to investigate these reports to do so. We're going to talk about one of those reports, and that is from 2022. So my other, wondering is who is doing follow-up to these prisons and other facilities. I know, this is going back when I was in high school. When I worked at McDonald's, we would the big chain owner would come once a month, and he wouldn't tell us when he came, kind of like quality control. He wouldn't tell us when he was coming. And so then he would see, okay, what's happening, what's not happening, what needs to be fixed, what's, things like that. Like, who has the oversight to make sure that these things that they claim are going to be implemented are in fact implemented. Steph Curry, it just came to me because I saw Cash's comment that said SG, and for some reason it came to me. I agree. It does happen far too often in prisons. As a state legislator, and particularly in my capacity as chair of the New York State Senate Crime Victims Crime and Correction Committee over the past 4 years, I have focused my daily attention and my office's resources on trying to end the rampant violence of mass incarceration. I am committed to continuing to pursue justice and urgently necessary policy change through this work. I once again express my deep condolences to the family and loved ones of Robert Brooks, whose death will not be in vain. Well said, Senator, well said. Oh, no, I will email you. Okay, I don't know. All right. All right, so we're going to move to I have a couple of videos of the rallies that took place here in upstate New York, specifically the one in Albany yesterday. And I will give a disclaimer. I believe this is the video, the news clip that does show some of the video not blurred. So I would recommend for those who may not want to watch, just listen, and because it could be distressing. Well, it will be distressing to many of us.
We work to give you the latest after Robert Brooks, an inmate at Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County, died following a brutal beating by correctional officers. We're now learning that the FBI and the DOJ are both investigating that death. We do want to warn you that what you're about to see is graphic and disturbing. A spokesperson for the FBI's field office in Albany says they are reviewing the facts and the circumstances surrounding the death of Brooks in order to determine the best federal response. They decline to reveal any other details, but they do say their review is ongoing. Meanwhile, Governor Kathy Hochul paid a visit to that facility today, demanding more answers following Brooks's death. She also announced immediate corrective actions. They include naming Benny Thorpe as the new permanent superintendent at that facility. Also, more than $400 million in.
Oh, so it says permanent superintendent. So, see, I don't know. And someone had said, Forsakes had said the warden of Marcy is the top dog in their opinion. So I don't know how the ranks are in correctional facilities. Let's see. So I'm assuming the superintendent, kind of like a school, the superintendent is like the top dog, and then you have your principals, vice principals. Some schools have deans of students. Okay, so okay. So according to Google, the warden is the highest rank in a correctional facility, responsible for budgets, policy, scheduling, and responding to riots and attacks. Oh, where was the warden during this attack? In some states, the warden is also known as the superintendent. Okay, well, there we go. Apparently in New York State, we call wardens superintendents. I didn't know that. Because when I think of, oh, they're the superintendent, I'm thinking they're the superintendent of schools, not of a prison. So there we go. The warden is the superintendent. So they must have had a temporary superintendent there. And then you have a chief deputy warden, an assistant warden, correctional captain, correctional sergeant, associate warden, camp administrator, supervisor of education, and facilities managers. Oh, and that's building maintenance. So, all right, so there we go. Wardens are superintendents.
investing in purchasing and fixing body-worn cameras across all facilities, and hiring more staff to investigate and manage complaints in a timely manner. Now,
okay, so here's the other thing. So she, again, Governor Hochul, I'm not a fan, but I mean, she has done some good things with certain things that have happened in this state. But to give over $400 million, investing over $400 million for body-worn cameras, it's only an investment, or I should say a good investment, if correctional officers use them the way they were supposed to be. Because in New York State, it is policy that any interaction with inmates, body-worn camera must be on. And clearly, you know, and for those who may not know, none of these officers turned their body cams on. They were recording, those who had their body cams on, they were recording in standby mode. That is why allegedly there is not audio to go with the video. Yeah, 400 million. I feel like there's, you know, other things. But I mean, maybe it's good that $400 million is coming upstate, because the majority of money goes downstate. So, I mean, but there's other things that it could be used for. I mean, it's only good if it's going to be used. How do you enforce that when you have, you know, at Marcy, I mean, if the sergeants are involved in this, who's going to say, hey, you need to have your body cam on? Nobody, because they're all involved in this ridiculousness.
in wake of the investigation, rallies calling for accountability were held all across the state, including right here in Albany today. CBS 6's Emma Quinn joins us live in the studio. Emma, you were at that rally today. Tell us what you saw and heard.
Well, Greg, dozens gathered outside the governor's mansion this morning, calling for the Marcy Correctional Facility to be shut down and for action to be taken against the corrections officers involved in Brooks' death. For those I spoke with, what happened to Robert Brooks is personal. Dozens gathered outside the governor's mansion Monday morning, calling for accountability into the beating death of Marcy Corrections inmate Robert Brooks.
When is it going to end?
Albany resident Debbie says her son Shaheem was transferred to Marcy Correctional Facility in August. She says she hasn't been able to speak with him for months.
I feel ripped until I can have someone say to me, my son is okay. I'm not going to feel all the way there. That's what goes through.
So I wonder why she can't talk to her son. I mean, unless he, well, we're going to get into some of the findings of the 2022 report. Like, how is he not able to have phone calls? Or I don't know. I don't understand the prison system, but it just feels like that's a problem.
Any parent that has a child that's in that jail.
For those who've been behind bars, they call the video traumatizing. Lameek Taylor and Michael Capers are both formerly incarcerated. They say the release of the body camera video is almost a relief.
Because oftentimes that abuse happens and it doesn't never get out. And there's times where like you're locked in your cell, you hear the screams of inmate, you hear them calling for help.
And for individuals who have experienced incarceration, this is everyday life. I also feel relief that this incident was captured for the world to see, so accountability can ensue.
Many are calling for charges against the corrections officers involved.
Which that makes me think about the other incidents, specifically those that had lawsuits attached to them. Where were the body-worn camera videos to prove these correctional officers innocent? That's, maybe there was, but maybe there wasn't. I have a feeling there wasn't any body cam video.
In Brooks' death, Debbie wants to see more.
Close that. If all those people were standing there witnessing that, what else do they witness? And they let it go.
Former inmates want the public to remember while they're serving time, they're human too.
Felony does not override my humanity, and my placement in a correctional facility does not negate the fact that I have rights and I'm a human being.
Now, many are calling for changes so these corrections officers cannot retire before the conclusion of any of these investigations and limit their access to their pensions.
That was mine because my one, somebody had brought it up in the last live, because if they retire or resign, well, I know for sure retire. If they retire, they still would be able to collect a pension. And they shouldn't be able to collect anything from this state. Just my opinion. All right, so the next one. I just have one more, and this has some of the same people speaking, but it also has some others speaking as well. And I meant to put the link to the entire protest / rally in the description. I forgot. It was about an hour and a half, 2 hours long, but I will put that in the description after the live. Just want to make myself a note. Yeah, SG, that is true too. Jails and prisons are short-staffed, to which is a problem. Numerous reasons: pay is lousy, it's dangerous, don't qualify for job. Yeah, but actually, correctional officers here in New York State get paid pretty damn well. They get paid pretty well.
Tonight, there is growing concern and demand for accountability following the death of Robert Brooks. Brooks was beaten on December 9th by correctional officers at the Marcy Correctional Facility. Brooks later died. The 43-year-old man was sentenced to prison back in 2017 for stabbing his former girlfriend. Brooks was in the middle of a 12-year prison sentence when he died. Today, a Justice for Robert Brooks rally took place right in front of the governor's mansion here in Albany. Supporters calling for the governor to do more.
She has the power. She literally has the ability to create change in New York State with her position. She needs to do that. It's not even a question. It's not, oh, well, maybe next year. This can't be the next legislative cycle or 2 or 3 legislative cycles.
Video of the prison incident grabbed headlines around the country as city leaders everywhere now across the country are bracing for more protests.
The fight for peace, for freedom, for liberation, for justice.
How many times do we need to come out? What do we need to do different?
These are some of the many voices calling for accountability and justice. Justice for Robert Brooks, a prisoner who died at the Marcy Correctional Facility in Oneida County.
No justice, no peace.
The disturbing attack on Brooks was recorded on body cameras.
Okay, I'm going to skip over this. I didn't realize they showed so much.
Everyone agrees that Robert Brooks did not have to die.
That these abuses happen in the corners and the dark spaces of prisons for years. Don't get it twisted. It is in no way new to many of them.
This is Senator Salazar. For those of you who may not know, she is, I think she's the youngest senator New York State has. And I will give another disclaimer. I watched this ahead of time and I didn't remember seeing so much of the body cam video. So viewer discretion is advised. Oops. Come on.
According to officials, 14 officers were involved in the deadly incident with Brooks. 13 of those officers have since been fired. A 14th resigned on his own. But to this crowd, that's not nearly going far enough.
We demand and fully expect all officers involved to be criminally charged for their respective roles in enabling and committing barbaric violence against Robert Brooks.
Without those cameras, and although they weren't activated properly, without those cameras, we're not here today.
That is 100% true. If those were not recording, none of us would be the wiser. I remember hearing about this death at Marcy, but I didn't really look into it because, you know, you hear things, and then these videos came out 3 weeks later, and it's like, whoa, why wasn't this in the media 3 weeks ago?
We don't even hear about Mr. Brooks at all, right? And so it's important for us to continue to stress the importance of policy change. It's important for us to all go out there and talk to our elected officials about making laws and bringing about positive change that will not only impact our incarcerated brothers and sisters, but also all of us here on the streets.
So what happens next now? New York State Senator Julia Salazar is calling for the closure of the Marcy Correctional Facility. Whether or not that happens or not, stay tuned with us here at News Channel 13 as we continue to follow the story as it moves forward.
And I don't see it closing. Let me look at... So currently there are about 1,200 inmates. Well, actually that was as of 2020. Its capacity is 1,522. So let's say there's 1,200 inmates there right now. Where are they all going to go? I don't see it closing, honestly. All right, so we are going to move on. We're going to kind of talk now about how the FBI and DOJ are investigating. Actually, before we go there, I do have one more article from CNN. But one thing that I had also read earlier is that the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision had said that they're already making changes. One being that correctional officers have to have their body cams on anytime they are interacting with an inmate. That was already standard operating procedure. And they're requiring senior leaders to be present for at least an hour per shift. Well, I think most shifts are like 12 hours, 16 hours. I'm not sure. Even let's say it was 12 hours. There's still 11 hours that the officers can do bad things. So, I mean, they can do all they want, but it's not going to necessarily change anything. Hey, True Jedi. It is not. As of what I have read so far, it is not being investigated as a hate crime. No. Hey, AMAC, thanks for stopping in. All right. So this is from CNN. What experts see in the shocking and disturbing video of New York man's fatal beating in prison. And this was from today. We're gonna skip that part. So it says the New York Attorney General's Office of Special Investigations has opened an investigation into Brooks's death. Attorney General Letitia James pledged Friday to use every possible tool available to us to investigate this death thoroughly and swiftly, and described the footage of the beating as shocking and disturbing. At least one of the officers involved, Anthony Farina, has resigned following the incident. Anthony Farina is also involved in another incident that is in current litigation. He, along with 2 other officers allegedly involved in the beating, were previously accused of assault, according to a court document obtained by CNN. And yes, they were. And the based on Pacer, the court case is still open. And that was from 2022. It is difficult to draw conclusions about the situation because the video footage does not capture any audio or show what led up to the violence immediately preceding Brooks's death. Well, that is true. We don't know what happened in the van on the way to the infirmary. We don't know what happened before he got into the van to go to the infirmary. But we know what happened when he was there, and it wasn't great. But in the opinion of several experts who reviewed the video, the footage showcases an excessive use of force by officers, as well as a failure by other officers to intervene. Excuse me. I can't believe the excessive force that these corrections officers used, Michael Alcazar, a retired NYPD detective, an adjunct professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, told CNN Friday. Several law enforcement experts who spoke to CNN criticized the corrections officers' use of force shown in the footage. Brooks, 43, seemed to be compliant with officers and not posing a threat as officers beat him, making the use of force potentially excessive under the law. Potentially? If it's potentially, then New York State needs to change their laws. Just because someone is handcuffed does not mean they can be subjected to force. However, and this is a big however, if someone is no longer a direct threat to the officers and is complying with instructions, it would certainly be excessive to strike them, choke them, etc. From the body camera footage, it is unclear what led up to the beating or why Brooks was taken into a medical examination room by officers, as the footage first shows Brooks's face down and handcuffed as 3 officers carry him into the facility. A 1992 U.S. Supreme Court ruling, Hudson v. McMillan, set the standard for police use of force, who was part of a team performing the first evaluation of a corrections body camera program at a jail in Loudoun County, Virginia. The ruling established force is, quote, only justified when it is used to maintain or establish discipline, end quote. Yeah, potentially is very broad. I agree. Right, for sakes. He was not moving when they were carrying him in. Peterson said potential excessive use of force is particularly evident when officers are cleaning blood off Mr. Brooks's face and then begin to strike him and continue to strike and grab him for the next 30 seconds. Prosecutors could consider a range of charges similar to the range of state and federal murder charges against 4 officers in the 2020 killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, which included a charge of murder against the lead officer, as well as abetting manslaughter, failing to stop unreasonable force, and deprivation of civil rights for the other officers at the scene. Alcazar, the retired NYPD detective, told CNN Friday the footage was horrible to watch. The use of force was inhumane. It was unnecessary. Yes, sir, it was. He added there appeared to be several sergeants in the room who failed to step in and stop corrections officers from beating Brooks. They should have stepped in and stopped them immediately. Officers who did not actively participate but failed to intervene could also be held legally accountable. Alcazar noted in the video the officers appear, quote, pretty comfortable doing this, especially with a supervisor there, end quote. That tells me they've been doing this a hell of a lot, and they probably learned from their supervisors. So if the supervisors do it, then what makes them think they can't do it? Yeah, thugs, I agree. Hey, Jingles, how's it going? Similarly, Jeremy Saland, a former federal prosecutor and criminal lawyer, described feeling disgust at the video. Law enforcement, whether correction officers on the inside behind the jail wall or police officers on the outside, have the responsibility to protect the public. The Attorney General said Friday 4 of the corrections officers involved did not turn on their body-worn cameras, which were operating on standby mode and recording video without audio. Saland said it represented a, quote, dereliction of duty for the officers. The failure to turn on their cameras could indicate an intentional act, with officers withholding or holding back that audio to protect themselves. 100% I agree with that statement. They didn't think they were being recorded. They didn't turn them on. They didn't think there'd be any evidence. That's my opinion. None of the officers or their representatives have commented since the video came to light. However, the New York State Correctional Officers and Police Benevolent Association, the union which typically speaks on behalf of prison employees, issued a statement describing the footage as incomprehensible, to say the least, and certainly not reflective of the great work that the vast majority of our membership conducts every day. At least 3 of the officers involved in the beating were previously accused of assault, according to court documents obtained by CNN. And we did cover that towards the end of my live that I did. No, I don't remember what day it was. Was it Friday? I think it was Friday. Jeremy Faust, an emergency physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital and an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School, told CNN Friday his jaw dropped when he saw the way 2 officers grabbed Brooks by his shirt and shoulders before forcing him to the back right corner of the room and holding him up against a wall as other officers looked on. It looked like just enough force in the right direction to do real damage. He noted although Brooks was previously alert and responding as officers hit him, he does not seem to move or react to stimuli after officers pick him up, looking slumped to the ground. It is possible Brooks sustained a deadly spinal cord injury when officers grabbed him, hyperextending his neck. This could have caused, quote, immediate or almost immediate paralysis of the body, including the respiratory muscles, end quote. An official cause of death has not been determined, but the medical examiner's preliminary findings show concern of asphyxiation due to neck compressions. The video shows a few minutes later, one of the officers appears to give him a sternum rub, which Faust says is used to try and assess if a person is conscious. Brooks does not seem to respond to the sternum rub. At that point, At the point the staff realized Brooks was unconscious, it should have triggered officers to immediately assess his airway, breathing, and circulation, and to provide CPR or other life-saving measures if needed. Staff do not appear to perform CPR in any of the videos released by the Attorney General, although one man seems to take defibrillator pads from the wall. The video ends before the pads may have been used. That's I wonder how come they ended. Maybe they can only record and stand by a certain amount of footage. Because the longest one is just over 30 minutes. Oh, it's okay. Tombstone, headstone. Same difference. Oh, Jingles, I'm so glad to hear that the baby's doing okay. She was breathing on her own for about 36 hours. Now she has a breathing tube, but still doing great. Well, nothing wrong with that. I mean, give her a little help to breathe. Take a little, like take stress off her little body. Okay, so the video ends before. Additionally, Foss said if the officer's attack had injured Brooks's spinal cord, officers should have immediately worked to stabilize his spine, holding his neck in place and then assessing his vital signs. I'm very worried that he sustained a spinal cord injury in that video. I tend to agree with Dr. Foss. State officials rushed to denounce the fatal beating. Governor Kathy Hochul said in a statement she was outraged and horrified by the video and called it a senseless killing. She added she ordered an investigation into Brooks's death and directed the commissioner of the Department of Corrections to fire 14 people involved. The governor also visited the facility on Monday in a trip that was closed to the media, her press secretary told CNN. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. Federal officials are also looking into the case. The FBI Albany Field Office and the Department of Justice are reviewing the facts and circumstances surrounding the death of Robert L. Brooks to determine the appropriate federal response, the FBI said in a statement. Excuse me. Department of Corrections Commissioner Daniel Marticello said in his own statement the video left him feeling deeply repulsed and nauseated, and he would implement institutional change at the department. And Julia Salazar, a New York State Senator, called for the closing of Marcy Correctional, where she said previous acts of unconscionable violence against incarcerated individuals had been reported. Several. The New York affiliate of the ACLU also pointed to a culture of officer brutality plus abuse at Marcy. It shouldn't take a cold-blooded killing captured on film to be a wake-up call to our leaders that the culture of officer brutality in New York prisons must be stopped. I agree with that. Hey, Cottle, how are you? A 2022 report about Marcy from the Correctional Association of New York, which provides independent oversight of prisons in the state, notes multiple problems at the facility, including allegations of physical assaults by staff on inmates and pervasive allegations of racial discrimination. And the full report, we're only going to go over a little bit of it. The full report is linked in the description of this video. I think it's about 60 pages long. So if anybody's interested, that link is in the description as well. Around 80% of inmates surveyed in the report said they had seen or been subjected to verbal, physical, or sexual abuse by staff. Inmates reported experiencing seemingly random assaults from the staff, as well as targeted attacks meted out as punishment. The report recommended the Office of Special Investigations and Inspector General investigate the widespread claims of abuse at Marcy. The Department of Corrections and Community Supervision told CNN in a statement that they have addressed or are in the process of addressing the majority of the recommendations contained in the 2022 CANY report on Marcy Correctional Facility. Oh, really? Interesting. In particular, they highlighted a broad expansion of their body-worn camera program. One of those recommendations adopted has been DOCCS investment of millions of dollars to continue to expand fixed cameras in all facilities, along with body-worn cameras. Body-worn cameras were deployed to Marcy Correctional Facility in May 2024. Those cameras were critical in preserving the evidence. This is BS. The cameras weren't turned on, sir. Let me finish that sentence. Sorry, I read it before I said it. Those cameras were critical in preserving the evidence of the fatal attack of Mr. Brooks. Yeah, because some of the officers actually had them on, even though they didn't think they were recording, in my opinion. There's no audio. So, I mean, whatever, sir. Whatever. All right. So, let's see. Where do we want to go next? All right, let's go to this one. This is from the Times-Union, and they have been doing an amazing job covering this, I must say. Hey, Steph, finally home. I agree, it is. It's insanity. I sure hope they are forsakes. I hope they all do end up in prison. So, FBI reviewing Marcy prison death of Robert L. Brooks as charges considered. The ability of law enforcement officials to file criminal charges against correction officers involved in the fatal beating of Robert L. Brooks may hinge on several factors, including the potential cooperation of the officers who witnessed the incident, as well as a medical examiner's conclusion on the cause of death. Well, I can guarantee that these officers aren't going to cooperate because they haven't, allegedly, based on another article we read earlier this week. Well, last week. Let's say there's 15 people there, potentially 10 witnesses who have disciplinary issues, but perhaps not criminal. I'd want to get them talking first, said a long-time prosecutor who spoke on the condition of anonymity due to the sensitivity of commenting on another agency's case. But you would want to make sure you hold them all accountable because there are people there that had a duty to act and failed to intervene. Agreed. Other current and former prosecutors said that pursuing a murder charge based on depraved indifference, which under New York statutes would require proof that some of the officers' actions were so reckless they caused a grave risk of death, could be difficult. Well, I'm sorry. There's at least one action by one of those officers that would prove depraved indifference. So, and there's probably more, but there's one in my mind that I'm not going to repeat. There's one that definitely shows depraved indifference. But lesser charges, including assault, gang assault, manslaughter, or negligent homicide, are also offenses they said could be considered. It might be difficult unless they can really tell from the video who is causing what injuries. And likewise, it may be just as difficult to therefore prove who caused the fatal injuries. But since he's dead, you're obviously thinking some sort of homicide charge, whether it's criminally negligent homicide or manslaughter. No, it was murder in my mind. The ongoing investigation is focused on the actions of roughly 15 Corrections Department employees, most of them correction officers who were involved in a beating. So now they're saying roughly 15. He died hours later after being transported to a Utica hospital. And let it be known, he died hours later at the hospital because he can only be pronounced at the hospital. Most of the officers who were in the prison infirmary when the incident happened did not use physical force, but they witnessed at least parts of what would have... Parts? Most of them were there for the whole thing. I don't know who this... I don't know. Yeah, depraved of the mind, for sure. I agree, Sunday. I agree. These guards are worse than an inmate doing time for trying to underline his. This is insane. And some of the comments on my TikTok that I've had to delete was just that. Well, he almost unalived his girlfriend. So, like, why are people so outraged? And that's the one I said, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out of my comment section. And then I proceeded to block her. People are freaking sick. It drives me nuts. For now, the state attorney general's office is leading the investigation under a 2021 law that gives it jurisdiction over cases involving people who died during encounters with law enforcement officers. The FBI and U.S. Justice Department, which has a civil rights division that handles criminal cases involving law enforcement misconduct, including instances of excessive force, are also reviewing the case. The FBI Albany Field Office and the Department of Justice are reviewing the facts and circumstances surrounding the death of Robert L. Brooks to determine the appropriate federal response. Oh, we talked about that. They didn't have comment. A medical examiner's preliminary determination was that Brooks, who suffered fractures and soft tissue injuries to his upper body, groin, neck, and head, may have died as a result of asphyxia due to compression of the neck. The conclusion will include the results of any toxicology reports that may reveal whether there were any narcotics or other substances in his bloodstream. More than 10 corrections officers walked in and out of the infirmary room where Brooks was beaten while handcuffed. It took place after he had been moved to Marcy Correctional from nearby Mohawk Correctional, where sources said he had been attacked at least twice by other inmates. So if that is true, if he was being moved to Marcy for his safety because he was being attacked by other inmates, yet unreal. I agree, Caudle. Still, it wasn't their place to unalive him. Absolutely. Get him, yeah. Some of this, like, and I try not to use bad words, but some of this stuff really pisses me off. Like, it's just, come on. Okay, so, allegedly, he had been moved, I would assume, for his safety. And the day he got to Marcy, he ended up losing his life. Go figure. Brooks had been injured in those assaults and his face was already bleeding. Wait. Brooks had been injured in those assaults and his face was already bleeding when he arrived at Marcy, according to multiple sources briefed on the investigation. Where's the proof? Where's the proof? Because the only proof we saw was his face that way in those videos. That could potentially cloud a criminal prosecution of the Marcy officers if Brooks suffered serious head injuries prior to arriving at Marcy. Well, if he was already injured, why did they treat him that way? I don't know if this is someone, hold on, let me go back up here. I think this is the Times Union reporter saying this is what people told them. But this makes no sense. I mean, sure, it could cause reasonable doubt, but no, where's the proof? Where is the proof? Oh, right, there isn't any. Steph, this is cursey word worthy. Okay, moving on. That just annoys me. The video footage released Friday by the Attorney General's office provides crucial evidence of what took place, but also leaves many questions about what triggered the officers to beat Brooks in what at times looked like a coordinated assault. Exactly. There was no evidence. Nothing would lead a civilized, normal human being to believe that any of that was warranted. He wasn't walking when he got to the infirmary. Clearly, he's not a threat. Clearly, these a-holes, they said, they had said a gang assault in one of the things. That's what it was. They had an incapacitated victim who they could do what they wanted to do without resistance because they are assholes. And I hope if they're not criminally charged that karma comes at them as hard as it can. And if I was their family member or a friend, I would be embarrassed. And I would tell them to get the fuck out. No way. And this is a huge assumption, but if they can treat a stranger like this, they probably do the same thing at home. I did say the F word because I would tell them to get the F out. Sure would. Like, I would be mortified. If this was a family member, I would be mortified. Okay, so we got that. The video footage begins outside with Brooks on the ground near a barbed wire fence. It's unclear why he was on the ground or what took place before multiple officers carried him into a prison infirmary. Well, he didn't lay down on the ground by himself, I would assume. He probably was unconscious in the van. So when they took him out of the van, they put him on the ground. And why that many officers? Is that, maybe some of us would know, is that normal to have like 14 officers? Well, I think there was at least 8 in the video outside. Like, is that normal for a medium security facility? That is true, Sunday Doodles. No such thing as a part-time sociopath. Nope. Definitely not. Okay. One of the officers had driven a van to meet the group and to pick up Brooks, but the officers carrying him by his handcuffed arms and legs walked past that vehicle and brought Brooks inside the nearby infirmary. What? That makes no sense. One of the officers had driven a van to meet the group and to pick up Brooks, but the officers carrying him by his handcuffed arms walked past that vehicle. Over the next roughly 10 minutes, numerous officers observed and 2 nurses. Oh, 2 nurses. So that's where the roughly 15 comes in, I bet. There wasn't just 1 nurse, there were 2 nurses. And 2 nurses viewed at least part of the incident from the hallway or as they moved in and out of the room while Brooks was beaten. Video footage from 4 of those officers' body cameras indicates that 5 of the officers used physical force that included all of those things. I'm not going to repeat them. Some of them also applied pressure with their hands to Brooks's face or neck. At one point, after an officer had placed his gloved hand over Brooks's face or mouth. Okay, I'm not going to read that either. The footage also showed an blah, blah, blah. We're not going to read all that. Okay, they're going into like graphic detail. Nope, not going to read that part either. Okay, so the officers have allegedly failed to fully cooperate with investigators, both in interviews with internal investigators and the criminal probe being conducted by state police. Numerous law enforcement officials who reviewed the videos told the Times-Union that no matter what their motive, and even if Brooks had allegedly tried to bite one of them or was hiding contraband, the level of force did not appear to be justified, especially because Brooks was handcuffed behind his back for most of the ordeal. So are they saying, I didn't watch the videos, so are they saying he was unhandcuffed at some point? Because I thought he was handcuffed the entire time. Hey, Meg, how are you? Yeah, Coddle, Chasing did a great job. I was just listening because I couldn't watch the videos. Right, Bernadette, where is all that video of the incident of him at the original incident that they say caused exactly? There isn't any. There isn't any. That's my thought. The incident at Marcy Correctional Facility is unusual because investigators were able to recover passive video footage from the body cameras of 4 officers who were unaware their devices were recording. See? Just another day at Marcy Correctional Facility. Attorneys who have represented inmates allegedly beaten by correction officers at Marcy or other state prisons said that type of video evidence is rare. They allege these incidents often take place in areas, including infirmaries, where officers are aware their actions are not being recorded by fixed surveillance cameras. And that was actually, I had thought about that when I read about how they were going to invest in more fixed cameras, things like that. Of all places, that's where there should be a camera. Like, there should be cameras everywhere. Everywhere. Except for, like, maybe staff. Well, I don't know. Maybe staff bathrooms do need to have cameras, because I don't feel like these people would go to any length to do what they did. Sorry, you got to go to the bathroom? Well, there's a camera in there. It's for your safety and the safety of the inmates. The video data recovered in the Marcy incident came from a cloud-based server and does not include audio. That lack of audio, according to current and former prosecutors, makes it critical for investigators to try and get some of the officers and 2 nurses who were there to cooperate and explain what they believe had motivated the assault. Wow. So it didn't even record to the actual body cam. It was like went to a cloud. Interesting. Maybe all video. Maybe they should automatically have audio and video. Automatically. And it all goes to a cloud, so then they can't get rid of the evidence. Hey, little C. Well, Sunday Doodle's true HIPAA laws, but maybe HIPAA needs to change a little bit. Especially in prisons, in jails. Daniel Marticello, who was appointed commissioner of the Corrections Department in May, described the incident as a vulgar, inhumane act that senselessly took a life. In February 2022, a year before Marticello was named acting commissioner, a former inmate filed a federal civil rights lawsuit alleging multiple officers had beat him at Marcy 4 years ago and for no reason. 2 of the officers, including a sergeant, were also involved in the assault on Brooks. And that is William Alvarez. And it was filed in February, but then they had to do an amended complaint. So the amended complaint was filed at the end of March 2022. And as of today, it is still an open case. So the Anthony Farina, he was a correctional officer. He's the one that resigned the day after this incident took place. Correctional officer Michael Babbitts, he was involved in Mr. Brooks' assault, and Sergeant Glenn Trombley, who I believe is the bald guy in the videos, the one that is doing some of the most. And we may not get to that today. I want to go through that the lawsuit. We might have to do that on a different day. Okay. Oh, here we go. The former inmate, William Alvarez, alleges his assault took place after a correction officer falsely accused him of attacking that officer. The officer had sprayed Alvarez with pepper spray and then pushed his emergency call button so that other officers raced to that tier, according to the lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court. Alvarez claims the officers rammed his head against a wall, causing serious injuries that required surgery and left him disfigured. He said he fell to the ground and was placed in handcuffs before officers kicked him in the head and body. He claims he was subsequently punched repeatedly by an officer while he remained handcuffed as they drove him in a van to the prison's infirmary. Oh, sounds very similar to what probably happened with Robert Brooks. The federal lawsuit filed by Alvarez, which is pending, lists two of the officers involved in his alleged assault as Sergeant Glenn Trombley and Correction Officer Anthony Farina, who were both implicated in Brooks's December 9th beating death. The body cam shows Farina punching and kicking Brooks. Yes, so I believe... Oh, so maybe Farina is the bald guy, not Tremblay. Tremblay stood by and observed the incident involving Brooks and did not appear to try and intervene to stop. So, okay, so I was mistaken. So Farina, the one doing the most, well, some of the most, is the one that resigned. How convenient, sir. In Alvarez's lawsuit, he said that during the van ride, Trombley had told an officer who was punching him, "That's enough," and that the assault stopped immediately. Interesting. So Trombley had actually said to stop, even though they had already done a lot. 14 Corrections Department employees, 2 sergeants, 10 correction officers, and a nurse were suspended earlier this month pending the outcome of the investigations. The governor last week called on Marcello to initiate proceedings to terminate all of them. Farina, who was among the 5 officers shown using physical force on Brooks, resigned immediately following the incident. Most of the officers have retained criminal defense attorneys. Well, interestingly enough, in the federal lawsuit that Mr. Alvarez filed, his attorney, not his attorney, the attorney of the corrections officers is none other than New York Attorney General Letitia James. And I don't know if it's because they're state employees that the Attorney General's office is who defends state employees, but I find that very interesting considering she's so horrified by what she saw on these videos. Yet your office is defending 5 officers who beat an inmate. Seems legit. Thanks, Little C, for being here. Have a good day. I did watch Judy Ron the other day. He had is it not Ed Wallace? Is that his name, the one guy? I think it is Ed Wallace. And then he had some guy from Jersey. I wasn't a fan of the guy from Jersey because, I don't know, he almost seemed like he was excusing this behavior. Maybe he didn't mean to come across that way, but that's what I sensed. Yep, resign or early retirement to help keep them benefits. Yep. The videos confirm details of the incident that were listed in court documents filed by state police last week, including the fact that Brooks was handcuffed throughout the beating. Okay, so earlier they said about he may not have been. A deposition by Ryan Paparella, an investigator with the State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision, was filed by state police in 3 court cases in which they sought temporary protective orders from a judge allowing them to seize any firearms in the possession of three of the 13 suspended correction officers. The judge rejected those requests. And I had read that last live. The judge said they could do background checks. Like, come on. Paparella, a former correction officer at Marcy who had been an investigator in the department's Office of Special Investigations for more than 3 years, cited footage from the body cameras worn by the officers as he described the systematic beating of Brooks. The investigator's account did not identify any apparent motivation for the attack. Give me 1 second, everybody. Sorry about that. If state police move forward with the protective orders, a judge set a hearing in the matter for January 7th. Paparella and other investigators would be subject to questioning by the accused officers' attorneys. Okay, well then have their attorneys question the investigators. I mean, and the 7th is a week from tomorrow. Okay, a week from tomorrow. I got to put that in my calendar later. The incident has sparked widespread outcry from prisoners' rights groups and multiple state lawmakers, including some who have called on Hochul to close Marcy in part due to its history of allegations of inmate abuse. State officials have been bracing for what they expect could be protests and widespread public outcry following the release of the video footage. Honestly, I wish there was more outcry. There have been, looking at these bigger creators, the only one I've seen cover it, and I could have missed some, was Duty Ron. I'm actually shocked, to be honest. But like I said at the start of the live, drama is what brings in, the big numbers. So drama it is. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Meg. The fact that he went on the transport himself and still couldn't control himself. I did not yet. Let me write that down again. Meg, Officer Longo. I did not yet. Thank you for reminding me. So on Monday morning, a protest organized by multiple advocacy groups was being held outside the governor's executive mansion in Albany. Okay, so it was this morning. I thought, so maybe the one in Brooklyn was yesterday. I misspoke. There have been numerous civil rights lawsuits filed against the state corrections department dating back years in which inmates or those who were formerly incarcerated have accused officers of beating them while handcuffed, including in areas of prisons where no video cameras were in operation. Well, it's just like in school, kids know where the cameras can't see them. There's like that corner, or that, like on the stairwell, there's that certain spot on the stairwell where the camera can't see them. The state agency has been deploying body cameras for correction officers sporadically since 2017, when it launched a pilot program to make New York the first state in the nation to equip its correctional staff with the recording devices. Since then, the body cameras and fixed camera systems have been expanded across numerous facilities, although many still do not have them in use or have implemented them only on a limited basis. So that's what I'm saying. Like, they're investing this $400 million. They're not using them routinely. But it's unclear how strongly the department has enforced its policies on the use of body cameras. During the December 9th incident, the officers who used physical force on Brooks had turned off their body cameras, were not wearing them, or had covered them up with clothing, according to law enforcement sources. Well, so the ones that covered them up with clothing, clearly that's deliberate. Not turning it on, deliberate. Not wearing them, deliberate. On December 18th, Marticello issued an agency-wide memo to staff noting the camera should be turned on and actively recording any time a correction officer wearing one is interacting with an inmate. The memo from the commissioner noted that the policy includes recording interactions with inmates in medical units. And who is going to oversee that to make sure it's happening? The Corrections Department, in response to a request by the Times Union last week, had identified the employees implicated in the incident and facing termination as correction officers Matthew Gallagher, Nicholas Anzalone, David Kingsley, Nicholas Kiefer, Robert Kessler, Michael Fisher, Christopher Walrath, Michael Along, Shay Schaff, and David Walters. Kyle Dashnaw, a nurse, and 2 sergeants, Michael Mashaw and Trombley, are also facing termination. Well, based on the last video news clip we watched, they all have been fired. The officers alleged to have, so the officers alleged to have kicked, punched, or used other physical force include Anzalone, Farina, Kingsley, Walrath, and Kessler, according to court records. Oh, and that was it. That was a very good article. I've got it, and I did subscribe to the Times Union. I did, because I'm telling you, they have been doing a fantastic job at covering this. All right, so we're going to just, we're not going to get to the lawsuit today because it is almost my 2 hours. So I have 2 more things. We're going to look at the changes that Governor Hochul says that she is implementing. And then we'll take a quick look at the report from the Correctional Association of New York. And then we'll get to the previous assault and lawsuits filed on probably not until Friday, because tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern, which is late for me, I am doing a 5,000 subscriber celebration type thing. We'll do, like, we can just chat, do different stories, we can play games, whatever we want to do. I'm actually almost to 5,100, which is incredible. So I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing because I'm obviously doing something right. And then Wednesday, we have Wordsy Wednesday. So I probably won't go live again about cases until Friday. All right, so this is from the Daily Sentinel. So Governor Hochul visits, all these freaking ads. Governor Hochul visits Marcy Prison, orders statewide prison reforms. Following an in-person visit to Marcy Correctional Facility. Oh, see, that previous is going to get in my way of reading. Dang it. Following an in-person visit to the Marcy Correctional Facility on Monday, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced a series of new orders and expenditures to improve accountability, both for the prison itself and for all prisons across the state. The visit was part of the governor's ongoing response to the beating death of inmate Robert L. Brooks at the hands of multiple correctional officers earlier this month. Today, as I stood in the room where Robert Brooks was killed, I was once again heartbroken by this unnecessary loss of life and further sickened to think of the actions of depraved individuals with no regard for human life. Depraved indifference. She said it. Mr. Brooks and his family did not deserve this. I told both Marcy leadership and the incarcerated individuals that I met with that every single individual who enters a DOCCS facility deserves to be safe, whether they are employed there or serving their time. The system failed Mr. Brooks, and I will not be satisfied until there has been significant cultural change. Today, I am implementing a number of new policies at Marcy and within DOCCS, and I look forward to continuing to hear ideas from experts, elected officials, and advocates as we continue this work. Okay, we're going to skip that because we talked about that. No criminal charges have been filed so far. So Hochul's new orders. Shawangunk Correctional Facility Superintendent Benny Thorpe is to be appointed the new permanent superintendent of the Marcy Correctional Facility. So then I assume they have a temporary then for Shawangunk. Thorpe has spent more than 2 decades working in corrections, including leadership roles at Hudson Correctional Facility, Sing Sing, and now as superintendent at Shawangunk, the governor said. He has extensive experience in security operations and also has implemented programs like college and prison and rehabilitation through the arts. He is a career DOCCS employee who has never served at Marcy or nearby facilities, giving him expertise and a fresh perspective on what must be done. He will replace Marcy's acting superintendent, Danielle Medbury. Sunday says, can she apologize for ignoring the other complaints that were addressed leading up to this? Yeah. Good question. Hochul said she is also working to expand the requirements for senior leaders within each facility to include an officer of the day policy so that senior leadership is present for all shifts. Okay. Expedite $400 million previously committed to installing fixed cameras throughout the prison system and to distribute body-worn cameras in all DOCCS facilities. We talked about the department that Mr. Marticello had said. The new policy requiring all staff wearing a body-worn camera to activate their body-worn camera and have it recording whenever they are in the presence of an incarcerated individual, regardless of the existence of fixed video monitoring, including in medical. Staff are required to have the camera powered on during the duration of their shift. They must then activate the camera to fully record whenever they are interacting with an inmate or when an inmate approaches their immediate area. So similar to what police officers do now. I'm actually shocked that they haven't been doing this in prisons. So another thing, expand the DOCCS whistleblower hotline to more effectively receive anonymous tips from staff, contractors, and inmates. Hochul also ordered that DOCCS staff be added to the DOCCS Office of Special Investigations to improve efficiency and timeliness of handling complaints. spend $2 million to expand the partnership with the Correctional Association of New York, which is charged by state law with visiting every state prison and conducting interviews with staff and inmates to determine the conditions inside. CNY conducted one such investigation into the Marcy Correctional Facility in 2022, where they reported rampant abuse by staff and retaliatory environment. Oh, and a retaliatory environment. So she's doing launch new partnerships, blah, blah. Let's see if there's anything else. Nope. Okay, that's it. So last thing we're going to do is just take a quick look at a few things on the report done by CANY. And this was from 2022. I know, sakes. Imagine how bad this place really, really is. And you're right, sakes. It doesn't work if you don't use them. So, monitoring visit to Marcy Correctional Facility. So here's kind of a map of New York. You can kind of see Marcy is kind of like right in the middle of the state, kind of. So I kind of lied. I said it was like halfway between Albany and Syracuse. It's more than it's closer to Syracuse than it is Albany. Okay, so we're just going to look at. So here are we're just going to go over the findings. Actually, let's see what this says. Background. On October 11th and 12th, 2022, the Correctional Association of New York conducted a monitoring visit to Marcy Correctional Facility, a medium security men's prison in Marcy, New York. CNY chose to visit Marcy after receiving an unusually large volume of correspondence, more than 25 letters from individuals incarcerated at Marcy between the months of February and September. CNY also sought to monitor the implementation of the HALT law in mental health units such as the RMHU. The CNY visiting party included 8 representatives who carried out a total of 117 interviews with incarcerated individuals, 75 individuals incarcerated in general population housing areas, 29 individuals incarcerated in the residential mental health unit, 11 in special housing, and 2 in residential crisis treatment program. As of October 11th, Marcy housed 909 incarcerated people. And this was 2022. So findings. Incarcerated people reported that items in the commissary were inconsistently available and sometimes unaffordable. There was a lack of fresh fruit and vegetables. Incarcerated people reported that due to changes to New York State Department of Corrections and Community Supervision's directive, they have experienced delays, missing items, and denials of packages. Many people described the package room as a source of contention and harassment. People expressed dissatisfaction with the food quality and an inability to meet their dietary needs at Marcy. People alleged frequently having been denied access to the mess hall for failure to meet grooming standards that had a disparate effect on Black people. Some people alleged that short time limits to eat were sometimes imposed through threats and the use of force. People incarcerated in general population units at Marcy reported good access to phones and visits. However, people in the RMHU complained of a recent rule allegedly restricting tablet access to evenings only. Some people in the RMHU reported allegedly not having access to hygienic materials and personal property. And that is the residential mental health unit. Medical and dental health care. Incarcerated people reported being unsatisfied with the quality and accessibility of healthcare services at Marcy. Staffing vacancies in medical, nursing, and dental departments negatively impacted access to care and contributed to long wait times. Mental health. People in the RMHU and the SHU reported mixed experiences with mental health care, while people in general population units reported OMH being inaccessible and a lack of programs. Programs and recreation. The variety of current vocational programs and industry offerings for those in the general population units showed promise in the department's commitment to rehabilitative programs. Highlights included popular programs in electrical, building maintenance, custodial maintenance, and an auto garage that repairs DOCCS vehicles for Marcy and Mid-State Correctional Facilities. People incarcerated at Marcy may also attend college courses through Mohawk Valley Community College. The success of the programs was limited by long wait lists for enrollment and staffing vacancies. Staffing is clearly an issue. People in the SHU reported not having access to the required minimum 4 hours of out-of-cell programming and recreation opportunities. People incarcerated in the RMHU reported receiving limited helpful programming. Congregate recreation seemed to be available to a very small number of people, and restraints were used for most people during programs in the RMHU. So most of the people in the, the residential mental health unit were restrained. Staff behavior. Incarcerated people reported rampant abuse by staff, including physical assaults and observations of a retaliatory environment across the general population units, the SHU, and the RMHU. Incarcerated people alleged a significant number of instances of racialized abuse and discrimination, including derogatory language and unequal treatment. Grievances. Incarcerated people at Marcy expressed a lack of confidence in the grievance process. Incarcerated people also reported delays and inattentiveness to grievances and fear of retaliation. People in the RMHE reported not receiving responses to grievances. Discipline. This is the last one we're going to read. Incarcerated people in the general population units in the RMHU expressed little confidence in the fairness of the disciplinary process. Incarcerated people reported being regularly held for more than 15 days in the Marcy SHU. The Marcy RMHU seemed to be operating outside of HALT guidelines. Concerns included a lack of congregate recreation, insufficient out-of-cell time, insufficient group programming and activities, and the shackling of incarcerated individuals during programs. Steph, thank you so much. Congratulations on 5K. I will miss the live tomorrow, but I'm cheering you on, Emmy. I appreciate that, Steph, and you've been with me since the beginning, I feel like. So thanks for your loyal support. I do appreciate it. So incarcerated people were being held in the SHU well past the 15-day limit imposed by HALT and reported a lack of access to out-of-cell programming. During that time, they allegedly were deprived of basic privileges such as property, out-of-cell time, programming, and commissary access. 9 of the 16 people in the SHU at the time of CNY's visit were on the Office of Mental Health caseload despite being in a special population category that is prohibited from placement in the SHU. Oh, there's only one last. The last thing, material conditions and environmental issues. Incarcerated people in the general population units described inadequate temperature controls and housing units causing problems in both winter and summer weather. Some incarcerated people in the general population units reported outstanding maintenance needs. And then they do go into the recommendations, and it's a 62-page report. So if anyone is interested, feel free to take a look. The link is in the description of this video. So there is a lot. And I actually did learn some new things reading, especially that Times Union article. So I'm definitely going to keep up to date with what they're publishing. And I do want to do a live stream on the current lawsuit that is pending. There was a motion to dismiss on, it was November something this year. And it hasn't been ruled on yet. So I'm not sure when it'll be ruled on, but the paperwork wasn't there. So we'll definitely take a look at that, and we'll take a little bit closer look with that lawsuit and the other Adam Bauer, I believe his name was. We'll take a look at his case again. Oh, California has a newer look at prisoner care. Oh, yeah? Let's see. Let me go over here to comments. I read down in comments somewhere where a CO from another prison had ran into those COs at the hospital with Brooke that night, and he said they made up all kinds of lies to what happened to Brooke. Well, and that was in one of the, wow, look how big that comment goes over my face. We had read that in one of the articles on my last live. One article had said that Brooks allegedly was trying to bite one of the officers, but then there was another account was that he had gotten into a fight with other inmates. Either regardless of what actually happened, he didn't deserve what happened to him when he got to the infirmary. That was just, like Governor Hochul said, in a depraved indifference to human life. And I know, it's nothing is probably going to happen until after January 1st, because most people, courts pretty much aren't in session. But there needs to be a case against these, at least the 5 who did the actual assault, and those who just stood around and watched. It'd be best to, make a deal, because they are culpable for what happened as well. Oh, really, Meg? Oh, yeah, you're in upstate, too. I always forget that you're upstate. Let's see. York Street. Okay, you guys are talking together. All right, well, that was a lot of information, and I'm just over my 2 hours, but do not forget, tomorrow I will be live at 9 p.m. Eastern time. It won't be a very long live. I don't plan on going live until midnight. Probably just, an hour and a half, 2 hours. And then on Wednesday, we have Words on Stream and Stream Pairs. And then I plan on going live on Friday, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Oh, you're in Utica. Okay. We used to go to Utica all the time when I was a kid, to the Utica Zoo. I actually, in high school, I actually interviewed for a job at Utica Zoo, but I ultimately chose not to take it. So if you haven't hit that like, please do so on your way out. And if you have watched this on the replay, I appreciate you. And feel free to leave comments in the comment section below. So have a great night. And if I don't see you on these YouTube streets, I will see you on the flip side.
Let it take me to that place now. I won't ever let my thoughts get away now. I got better things to do, picking fate now. I just wanna be the best, call me great now. I don't know if I'm okay or insane now. I remember better days on the playground, hoping I can find my way. Even when I'm feeling down, I fight. Even when I don't know what is right, I'ma pick a side and I'ma take pride. I will decide my fate and I will never let them tell me who I am. If you try to shake me, I'll be damned. Planet on the ground is where I stand. Never give up, that was always the plan. It's so cold outside. I'm alone, I'm alright. It's so cold outside. I'm alone.